Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I've taken the tire off of this Patriot for the purpose of changing these brake pads. If you want to know how to take the tire off, you can look at my changing the tire video, and I'll put the link in the comments. In any case, I've already taken the tire off. As you can see, I have jack stands down here for safety reasons. Please, never ever get underneath the car, start taking parts off the car like this, unless it's on safe jack stands. Please never get under your car without jack stands. I'm going to get you set up, and I'm going to show you how to take all of this apart, and I'll show you the tools you'll need. I'm ready now to take off this brake caliper to get these brake pads out. The set of tools that I'm going to need right now: a wrench. This is the right size wrench to get the caliper bolts out. You'll need a bungee cord to hold the caliper, because you never want to leave the caliper hanging by this flexible brake line. I have a C-clamp here. It's going to be to compress the caliper piston, because once the brake pads have worn out a little bit, the caliper piston will have expanded, and we will have to compress that back in to get the new, thicker calipers in. And also, I'm going to use this. It's just some brake and caliper grease, and it's going to be used for a lot of the parts here. So I'm going to get you set up, and we'll get this thing apart. I know it's kind of hard to see, but this is the front of the caliper, and there are two bolts, this one and this bolt up here, that are holding this piece of the caliper on. So off camera, I'm going to use this wrench. This happens to be a 14 millimeter. I'm just going to zit these bolts off of here, and I'll be right back. Sorry about the lighting, folks. I know it looks like we're in a spotlight on a stage here, but my camera ran out, the light, and I have my headlamp on. So I have gotten the bolts out that I talked about previously. They're loose, and I'm just going to slide them out, and if you'll notice, they are bolt slash slide pin. I'm going to put these to the side. One of them, if you notice, has a rubber tip. That one goes on the top. The one without the rubber tip goes on the bottom. I'm going to set these aside. We'll clean these later. But now that we've got those bolts out, this whole caliper piece should just wiggle loose. And if you can see, this is the caliper piston in here, and you can see that it has been pushed out a little bit, not much, because these brake pads are not really worn very badly. I've just been requested to replace them anyway because they're squealing, and I'll show you how to fix that later, even with these brake pads. In any case, with the new brake pads, we're going to have to push this back in to the caliper housing. For the moment, we're going to take this bungee cord, we're going to hook it just to the spring up here, and then I'm going to just hook this together, and it can just hang back here, just as long as it's not hanging with all of its weight on this flexible line. This flexible line could become pretty brittle. These ones are okay. This car is not that old, but if the flexible line is really brittle, you could break this. Truth is, if it's that brittle, you probably just need to replace it anyway. You can see the brake pads here. This is the brake caliper mounting bracket. This is not going to come off, but I will show you some things that you do want to check. This is the rotor, and don't worry about this rust. This rust is going to happen no matter what you do, unless you paint this. In this case, I don't care to paint it, but what you do want to do is check that this surface right here is semi-smooth, and it's going to have some wear, but make sure there is not a huge lip right here or out here. And in this case, these are very smooth, and there's no lip at all. If these are worn down, or if this looks like a really hard worn groove in any of this, or on the back side back here, then you're going to want to replace these. These are not that expensive. You can get them at AutoZone, and they have a lifetime warranty, so please don't put new brake pads on super worn brake rotors. In this case, these are almost new. We're going to pull these brake pads out. So the brake pad, there's the back of it. It just comes out, and you can see it has quite a bit of brake material left. So the fact that these are squealing is probably due to the back of this being worn. And you can see it's kind of, when you hit the brakes, it puts a lot of pressure on these, and these might move back and forth a little bit and cause a squeaking sound. These have plenty of material left on them, so I'm going to pull the backside one also, and we'll look at it. And you can see between the two of these are nearly new. So let me grab the new ones and we'll compare them to these. I have the old brake pad here, so I'm going to go ahead and show you. Here is the new brake pad. Try to get up in the light. So old versus new. This one has some, corrosion on the back of it, which is probably what's making it squeal. But if you look at the difference in material, it's really not that bad. I mean, this one, these are not that bad of shape. I'll give these back as, spares, but I'm going to go ahead and put these new ones on. Before I go ahead and put these brake pads on, I want to show you the bolts that we took out earlier. They slide into these boots, which keep dirt out. There's a little bit of grease in here to allow these to slide back and forth. Now, if you look at these up close, these look pretty nasty. These boots probably need to be replaced. I don't see any cracks in them, and they're still very flexible. But I'm going to suggest that the customer have these replaced, just because these could crack and cause moisture or dirt to get in here and cause these to lock up, which would be bad. One of the things we need to do before we put these brake pads in and put the caliper back together is we need to recompress this piston. One of the things you can do is take the old brake pad and just set it in place, put a C-clamp over it, and if you watch very carefully, this will compress that all the way back in. So now if you look at this, you can see that the piston is pushed all the way back in. That will give us plenty of room to put the new thicker brake pads in. When we look at the old brake pads, we can see that they have this piece, and the new ones don't have it installed yet, but you can see that there is a section where one could be installed. I'm not going to use this one because the brake pads come with a new one. If you look at these, you can compare to the new brake pads. So you just want to put it in the same spot. And this one should just clip straight on. There is the new one clipped on. This one with this piece goes on the inside of the rotor. So we will get these put on in just a second. First thing we need to do is grease up the parts. There are some pieces. There are these aluminum looking pieces like this. And the new brake pads come with fresh new ones. So why not go ahead and replace them? And they just clip in. Not every brake system is going to have these particular ones. Some sport braking systems will have some springs across this way, and some will have other springs, and some that go in two pieces. But in this case, these two pieces go on first. This grease, you want to just put a tiny bit where the brake slides are going to go. So try not to get it on this. You don't want any lubricant on this rotor, but just put a tiny bit in these areas where the brake calipers will slide back and forth. And it doesn't need to be very much. So that is plenty. I'll tell you what this piece does. When this brake pad wears all the way down to where this is going to rub on this surface, well, on the other side, but on the surface of this rotor, and it's going to squeal like a banshee. And that is going to let you know that your brake pads are worn out. So this is a audible wear sensor. Most of the time, if you're hearing squealing, it's because your brake pads are so worn down that it is hitting this piece and squealing on purpose. It's a notification technique for your car to tell you something's wrong. In any case, this goes on the inside. You can see that these brake pads are curved this way, the same as the rotor. They won't fit in like this, obviously. They have to fit in curved towards the rotor. I'm going to put this one on the other side, but the first thing I'm going to do is put a thin layer of this grease on the back of it, and that will help protect it from getting like this one did and squealing. I have the one for the front. It's going to go right here, and we'll go ahead and put it in there. So I can just lower it into place and then push it in, and then we will put a little bit of grease on this one too. Well, that's good. We have taken the old ones out. We've compressed the caliper piston. We've put a little bit of grease on here, and now we're ready to go ahead and take this bungee cord off. And now this caliper piece will slide right back on. I've greased it, and I'm just going to slide it back in to where we took it out and put it back in place. Tighten it up. And we will do the same for this one. Just a little bit of grease. Slide it back into place. Make sure we're not getting it cross-threaded. And then we are going to just tighten up these two bolts. And there you have it. We have changed the front brake pads. I'm going to do the other side. I'm not going to bore you with that. It's going to be exactly the same as what we did here. Thanks for watching.